Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. And now the Friday Crime Report. Portland, Maine, Tuesday, September 5th, 2023, 4 o'clock p.m. The body of a woman was found down an embankment in a wooded area near a Home Depot in South Portland. She was identified as 52-year-old Danielle Goodwin. She had worked as a drug and alcohol counselor. She had previously been a drug addict herself, but she joined a support group and had since been helping other people to get clean too. 2 days after her body was found, her death was ruled a homicide by the medical examiner. The investigation quickly grew, which would not have been the case if she had been black. She had last been seen in a blue Honda CR-V, but the authorities weren't able to locate it. Investigators from the Maine State Police, the ATF, and members of police departments from Portland, South Portland, and Saco to Mariner became involved. Police searched the woods for evidence and began interviewing people and reviewing video evidence, but they didn't turn up anything right away. The police made appeals to the public for information relating to this case. 8 weeks passed, and then on November 3rd, authorities announced that they had made an arrest in the case. They charged 65-year-old Gary Mariner with her murder. Police aren't saying what exactly led them to him. The affidavit is currently sealed. This Mariner character, however, as it turns out, is, well, pretty standard for those with genetic immunity from the law. His father was the police chief in Cape Elizabeth, Maine. And as such, you won't be surprised to learn that this wasn't Gary's first run-in with the law. See, Gary's father, the police chief, died some years back. Gary, however, held on to his father's badge. In September 2015, exactly 8 years before this latest incident, Gary had coerced a young prostitute into having sex with him by identifying himself as a cop, telling her, "This is your lucky day." According to reports, the woman asked Mariner whether she was under arrest, and he told her she could work it off. He then drove her to a parking lot of a bus station where he pulled a gun and demanded that she do what he told her. Surveillance video from the bus station confirmed Mariner's vehicle had been there, and his victim described him, his gun, his car, and even the cigarettes he smoked with so much detail the police were able to match the objects to things that they found in his home. Mariner had been married at the time of this 2015 rape. When the police came knocking on his door, he denied even having a badge, but police were able to soon find it. The following month, he was charged with gross sexual assault. Now, according to the initial story about this incident, Mariner faced up to 30 years in prison, potentially. This was in 2015, so of course you can guess genetic immunity from the law got him out of trouble on that one. Instead of the 30 years he was supposed to get, he only got 12, less than half the number that he was initially looking at. And even after that, 2/3 of his sentence was suspended. So, out of a potential 30 years, he only got sentenced to 12 and only had to serve 4. 4 years for impersonating a police officer and raping a woman. Now, you might think that maybe he got the slap on the wrist back in 2017 because he was a first-time offender. And you would be wrong. He also has 2 prior convictions on his record before that, both misdemeanors, assault in 1978 and criminal threatening in 1983. So this guy's got a criminal record going back 45 years. Now, if you watch my crime reports, you know that certain people, when they get arrested, the authorities automatically lower the charges against them. On the other hand, if you're black, they charge you with felonies no matter what. But if you're not black, no matter how heinous the offense, the authorities automatically lower the charges to misdemeanors. That's the 2-tier, color-coded criminal injustice system that we have here. Now, we don't know how bad this Mariner's crimes were initially back in the 70s and 80s, but we can guess it was probably more serious than just a misdemeanor. And he didn't need his police chief's father's connections to get him out of those 2 jams. He gets preferential treatment in the eyes of the law. And please don't think the judge didn't know that 8 years ago. They knew about all of his priors. This is an injustice system based on race, not on law or on the evidence. This is color-coded criminal injustice, and you can tell it's deliberate by how consistently this happens, not just in Portland or just in the state of Maine, but nationwide. Now, I also want you to ask yourself this. Do you truly believe that this was the first time that this Gary Mariner character did this? We know that the serial rapist and ex-cop Daniel Holtzclaw raped at least a dozen women or so. So with these degenerates, it's never their first time. Now, something else that needs to be mentioned. As everyone knows, Maine had a mass killing just a couple of weeks ago. And also before that, the former governor of that state, a racist puke named Paul LePage, made headlines when he went on a racist rant claiming that all of the heroin sold in Maine is being sold by a couple of black guys from New York named D-Money and Shifty. He also said that these black drug dealers from out of town were getting white girls in Maine pregnant before they leave. This creep was saying that black men commit all of the drug crime in his state. Meanwhile, you got white gunmen slaughtering 18 people and injuring dozens more, and another creep who's committed at least one rape that we know of and an assault in the past. And now this guy is being charged with murder. You see, that mass killer from a couple of weeks ago and Gary Mariner, they're not being accused of having just merely gotten a white woman pregnant. One of them has been convicted of raping a woman, and both of them have been accused of murdering white women. This is the price of genetic immunity from the law. In the name of bestowing racial privilege on select people, they ignore crimes and make it a point to go after black men from New York or Connecticut. The problem is that the Paul LePages of this world hate black people more than they love white women who they claim to care so much about. But then again, when you look at LePage's remarks from years back, you see that he didn't actually say he cared about white women at all. He just said that black men were getting white women pregnant and that creates problems. This is why phony white grievance is so dangerous. It feels good in the moment to pretend like you're nullifying black people's legitimate complaints about how we're treated, but in reality, it emboldens the killers and the rapists. This is what's going on in Maine, and it also needs to be mentioned that this happened in one of those small towns. The population of Portland, Maine is only a little over 68,000 people. These small town values are the reasons that criminals like Mariner can do this and get away with it. And people who keep voting in racists like LePage are also part of the problem. It also doesn't help that this country has an addiction to scapegoating black people. They do it because it's easy. It doesn't require any infringements on their own movements or activities. And while this may make some people feel good about knowing that there's a racist system in place that favors them, it also makes it where the wolves among them are emboldened, because there's a racist system that favors them. Now, of course, this case has yet to go to trial, but if this turns out like the last couple of run-ins that Mariner had with the law, then he'll be looking at life in prison potentially, but then he'll only get sentenced to 15 years, and he'll be out in 5, just 1/3 of his sentence. Sure, he's old, but with some luck, he just might be able to get in one more victim before he dies. And that's this week's Friday Crime Report. Keep your eyes open and stay on alert, because there's a lot worse criminals out there than the ones the white corporate media chooses to show you. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Zachary Jenkins, Ricketta, Nancy, Abram Pruitt, and Fred Williams. Salute to them, and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.